Attention all Warlocks, Project Warlock 2 Chapter 2 is finally here. Developed by Buckshot Software and published by Retrovibe, Project Warlock 2 entered early access last year, massively iterating on the first game's gameplay with a fresh take on its animated sci-fi fantasy art direction. It was a strong start to early access with excellent splat-tastic combat that paid tribute to classics like Quake and Doom, but it had its fair share of criticism, largely aimed at its level design and buggy state. Criticism that Buckshot would address with a multitude of updates and sweeping redesigns, bringing Chapter 1 into prime shape and setting the stage for its follow-up. With Chapter 2, Buckshot has taken the opportunity to expand Warlock 2's horizons and present some truly new concepts for the franchise. Where Chapter 1 felt like an updated take on the experience of the original game, Chapter 2 is very much its own vibe, with a brand new playable character, a wholly new progression system, new weapon set, and introduction of a Wild West setting, heavy in folklore and cryptozoology. In today's video, I'll be detailing the features of this update and lending my thoughts on them, all to help you decide if this new chapter is worth your attention. So let's mix up some mana, pack some daggers, and continue the project. Kicking things off, let's dive into the most eye-catching part of this update, the Wild West setting. Warlock's take on the West is true to its vibrant yet moody personality, with an infusion of fantasy and horror. You'll be fighting in desert canyons, saloons, and the camps of indigenous peoples, bathed in dark purple hues and swarming with demons wearing cowboy hats and rampaging skeletons. It's a refreshing switch-up following Chapter 1's hellish medieval setting, and the levels are rendered cleanly and absolutely pop. Visually, they make a better first impression than the initial builds of Chapter 1, which were a little rough around the edges. It's clear Buckshot has really improved their graphical game through the course of this development. Speaking of Chapter 1, it's gotten a bit of a spruce up with some added color and detail to the levels. Good to see. One odd thing though is that there's now a rather strong bloom effect that can't be turned off. In fact, it's grayed out in the options menu. I'm not sure what's up with that, but hopefully this is something we'll be able to tweak soon, because I'm not a big fan of this effect. I feel like it just blows everything out, especially in Chapter 1. One thing I love about Warlock 2 is its approach to rendering enemies, where they are initially built in 3D and converted to pixel art, which I think looks really cool and gives the game some distinct character. The new enemies look fantastic. The designs themselves are colorful, creative, humorous, and creepy, and I think they're rendered more sharply compared to Chapter 1's enemies. The new baddies are based on equal parts fantasy, European, and North American folklore, with topless elves, topless vampires, and topless demons to terrorize you. Buckshot sure loves their evil memories. My favorites though are the Sasquatch and Wendigo, who behave an awful lot like the Archviles from Doom, along with the spiky man-bears that could have been based on some folklore, but might be a nod to a certain South Park episode. Chapter 2 also features some fancy new graphics for whenever you pick up weapons and earn upgrades. I don't mind their inclusion, and I think they look pretty good, but if I had a nitpick, I wish they were rendered in the same pixel art style as the other menus, just to keep things feeling consistent. One thing I found to be a bummer, and this is mild spoiler territory so I'll keep this vague, but the Wild West theme eventually morphs into a wholly different one that I just didn't find as compelling, and I wish the devs stuck with and pushed the Western setting further. Another bummer were the bugs. During my time with Chapter 2, I encountered many a bug, most of them minor graphical ones. Flickering reload animations, enemies clipping through geometry, enemies shooting in directions they weren't facing, some suspicious hitboxes, and other general jank. Now, Buckshot has a reputation for addressing issues quickly, and sure enough, while I was working on this video, they put out a patch addressing quite a few of these bugs. However, a few of these I still want to touch on, as I didn't see them addressed in the patch notes. Keep in mind, some of these may be fixed by the time you watch this. While performance was solid throughout, I noticed that if I died and restarted, the game would hitch quite a bit, but only within the area I died in, clearing up as soon as I progressed from it. Not sure what caused this, but it was irksome when I hit some tougher zones where death was more prominent. The most annoying though were the soft locks. I often found that if a Wendigo killed me, the game would neglect to go to the game over screen, leading me to force quit the game. This also occurred when I picked up upgrade tokens. Every once in a while, if I happened to be holding down my movement keys when I picked these up, which which was 100% of the time, it would cause the upgrade screen to swipe away, leaving me on this frozen, piss-hued screen. This one in particular had me raging, as I always lost progress because of it. Something to note is that the bugs became more pronounced as I progressed. The first 3 or 4 levels were quite polished with little incident, but the final stretch, the glitches and soft locks were frustratingly common, and I can't help but think this release was rushed a little. And look, I understand this is early access, but considering how long this chapter took to come out, the lack of polish is disappointing. The next big standout, the levels. Warlock 2 has had a bumpy history with its level design, with the first release of Chapter 1 featuring 6 massive non-linear levels, challenging players to thoroughly explore. The problem was they were a little too non-linear, and many players, including myself, found them confusing to get through and harmful to the pacing. Buckshot would address this by redesigning them, splitting the 6 giant levels into 12 smaller ones. It was a good move. It improved the pacing considerably, made them easier to navigate, and still retained some of the non-linear design. For Chapter 2, Buckshot has set aside a lot of their non-linear aspirations and stuck with a strictly linear design for most of the maps. In fact, some players might be surprised just how linear the starting levels are, essentially being a single path to the finish with a few loops here and there. As they progress though, they'll find the levels do open up, featuring some sizable areas that require some exploration. Although this is more a wide linear type of thing where there is a clear critical path with little deviation. In all, I'm fine with this choice. While I appreciate non-linear design, the truth is the star of Warlock 2 is its combat, and keeping that the focus and pacing brisk is more important. Plus, these levels are fun to get through, with arena design that facilitates fun combat scenarios. Where I'm critical is in the final levels. Not so much in their design, but in their enemy makeup. The final maps are crammed with larger tank-like baddies that can be a chore to get through. And the final 2 bosses are kind of underwhelming. To me, they felt rushed and were lacking challenge. And the ending was very abrupt. Heavy in magic and eyeliner, we have Erd, the new playable character. As the game would describe her, Erd specializes in devastating magical spells, but is physically weak as a trade-off. Erd comes with her own set of weapons that, compared to Palmer's in Chapter 1, require a little more precision and for the most part have a slower rate of fire. They still make for a punchy splatfest, just one that feels more concentrated and paced down. The pump-action shotgun, for example, has a narrow spread and a hefty beat in between firing, which vibes different compared to Palmer's chunky, rapid boomstick that could tear through a horde. I think it's fair to say it's similar to the starting shotgun from the first game. The SMG has a slower fire rate as well and a wide spray that makes it better up close. A far cry from Palmer's more rapid and precise assault rifle that's solid at close and far ranges. And the pistol is more akin to a sniper rifle, featuring a slow but highly accurate shot that can behead a good chunk of the enemies, with a scope to let you pick them off from afar. Personally, I didn't find these weapons as satisfying as Palmer's, but they were still fun and effective, and I do appreciate the different pace to combat. Rounding out the arsenal is the return of the dagger, which can be thrown. Nothing too flashy, but effective all around, along with what I think is the standout, the magic spellbook. The spellbook is really 5 weapons in one, as there are 5 elemental spells that can be used, like ice, fire, and poison. Most enemies have elemental strengths and weaknesses, which makes this implement a go-to for many late-stage battles. Although the default ice spell is quite the versatile powerhouse itself, able to freeze most enemies. Perhaps a little OP, but I'm not complaining. The new cooldown abilities are decent with one big miss. The best of them is the Poison Bomb, essentially a poison cloud grenade that's ideal for crowd control. Dagger Storm creates a whirlwind of daggers around you that can shred enemies. Effective for crowded close quarter situations and keeping pests off you in a big arena battle. The dud is the Crystal Sentry, or at least he was a dud for me. The idea is that you summon this little purple goober who fights for you, which is cool, and when he does, it's effective. But most of the time he wouldn't do anything but stand around and be overly clingy. Hey, could you, do something? And, give me some space? He also has a nasty habit of getting in your line of fire, so a lot of times I would accidentally kill him. Also, there was a bug where every time I summoned him, he would just turn into a pile of ice, or wouldn't appear at all. That's him right there. Yeah, this sucker is kinda broken and needs some work, and until the devs patch him up, I would say don't waste any of your upgrades on him. Oh, speaking of, Erd features her own progression system that is robust compared to Palmer's, and surprisingly, random. Throughout each level are upgrade tokens that when collected present 3 randomized upgrades, not unlike what you would see in a roguelite, or like. There is a huge swath of buffs and perks for your health, armor, weapons, and cooldowns, as well as your luck. So you can upgrade your shotgun to reload and shoot faster, make your SMG more accurate, have the first bullet of your pistol be significantly stronger, have frozen enemies shoot out deadly ice shards when shattered, or make it so a killed enemy has a chance to spawn a poison gas cloud. And the individual upgrades themselves can be upgraded, with maxed out ones bringing powerful special perks. Believe me, there is a lot here, and you can keep track of what upgrades you have so you can keep your build as balanced or unbalanced as you want. In all, it's well implemented, but I have to say I'm a little on the fence with it. On one hand, I appreciate the huge variety of upgrades as well as the element of surprise. Plus, it keeps with Warlock's style of not allowing players to have all the upgrades within a playthrough and needing to make some choices. But on the other hand, I can't help but question if something like this is necessary for this type of shooter. As I said, this upgrade system is very similar to something you would see in a rogue, and rogues are all about the random chance. That's what makes them fun. You have to roll with the punches of what the game gives you. In a classic FPS though, random chance is not something you really need and is often the thing to avoid. And the random chance here is actually not as random as it appears. Throughout each level, there are reroll tokens which let you reroll your upgrade choices if you don't like the ones presented. And these tokens are everywhere. I mean, this game practically throws them at you. On average, I had about a dozen of these on me at all times, and whenever I wanted to upgrade a specific category, I just spent the tokens until I could and felt little consequence in doing so. It was just a more roundabout process of me getting what I wanted. I can't help but wonder if it would just be better to have a standard skill tree presented where all upgrades can be seen and have certain branches lock off depending on which upgrades you choose. Not all that dissimilar from the skill tree in Forgive Me Father 1. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, and when I'm on the fence of features like this, my ultimate question is, did it negatively affect the experience? And the answer to that is no. I still had fun with this upgrade system, and by the end of Chapter 2, I felt like I had upgraded Erd to be a satisfactory powerhouse. And I acknowledge the replay value here, as another playthrough can bring different upgrades and give me a different build to play with. Although that could still happen with a standard skill tree. I don't know, it all kind of depends on how the Warlock community receives this, because if a majority of them pan it, Buckshot will likely overhaul. If you're currently playing this, let me know your opinions on it, I'm very curious. In all, I enjoyed my time with Project Warlock 2, Chapter 2. I think this game is heading in the right direction, and I love that Buckshot is trying new things, even if I'm on the fence with some of them. That being said, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little disappointed with it, largely because of the bugs and the underwhelming finale. But knowing how Buckshot reacts to player feedback, I'm sure this chapter is going to be in better shape in no time. For those who already own Warlock 2 Early Access, rejoice, you have more content to enjoy. And for those that don't have it yet but are dying to jump in, you'll definitely have hours of solid retro shooting to enjoy, and Chapter 1 is in great shape. For everyone else though, it's still wise to hold off and let this one cook a little longer. What are your thoughts on Project Warlock 2? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and smack that bell. If you want to come say hi, my Discord is linked below along with my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.